Hey guys, Youthful Yields here. Today we're going to be going over the portfolio again for this week. So I'll just jump straight into it. Obviously, the market's pretty red right now this last week. We started, I think, honestly, Monday or Tuesday was actually a decent day. I think it was Monday. But then, or at least for my portfolio, and then it just kind of went downhill from there. Um, yeah, let's start on the Webull side here. We can see that we actually went up. So I'm going to be honest, it's funny because usually when this goes up, it's a bad sign. So yeah, I mean, we're up about $47, which is pretty nice. But unfortunately, on the other portfolios, we're not doing very well. So there's that. Also, before I forget, obviously, tomorrow is Memorial's Day, so the markets are going to be closed. The U.S. markets are going to be closed, so keep that in mind as well. On the M1 Finance portfolio, we're at 1299.766. And if I come over here to the investing, I also think they did a small update on this, which is pretty nice. But let's go ahead and do this. They need to add some color here, but that's fine. Yeah, down about 3% according to this. That's $400. And we can see the worst performing. Literally every single sector that I have here is down. The biggest one was energy with 21% down on ENPH, which is crazy. Financials, we have the biggest loser here as Morgan Stanley, and then semiconductors, the biggest loser there, probably, yeah, AMD. AVGO actually did positive, but as far as the lowest, we have consumer staples, or I guess the highest, whatever, you know what I mean. So PG actually did pretty good. Healthcare, funny enough, United Healthcare went up quite a bit this week. I think it went up something like, 20% or something crazy like that. Let's see if they have this here. Do they have? It's like you. I always do that. United Healthcare. If we go to like the last 5 days, 1%. I don't know. It was pretty nice because we lost a lot on, I think, what is it, 20th? Is that a Friday or something? Or no, that was the Tuesday. Anyways, my point is, this is going very south, especially this last month, obviously, but it seems like we're slowly regaining potentially, so that's good. And then last but not least, industrials with lowest loss on there being honey. Well, international. So let's just see if we have any dividends for this week. There have not been any dividends this week. We did get the buys, obviously, but there's that. Now, unfortunately, we did lose a lot on this week for the Composer portfolio, algorithmic trade. Majority of that loss actually coming in on Friday and Wednesday, and I'll go into that a little bit further in a second. But that was our biggest position is in this KMLM switcher. And unfortunately, we were holding SFIX. So we were holding UVXY, and then we ended up switching to SFIX temporarily for a few days, and then we switched on Friday close to SQQQ. You can see that. Well, actually, let's see. Yeah, I mean, you can see that here, SQQQ. So there's that. After ours, SQQQ actually was up a little bit. Only time will tell, see if whether or not that's going to continue. But I don't know. You can see if I come over here, how that worked out in logic was down here between SQQQ and TLT, and that's if the RSI of XLK is greater than the RSI of that KMLM. But anyways, we can go to this last week, so we can go from like the 25th to the 18th for an example. There we go. You can see how these did. So Overall, everything is down, unfortunately, but we had a 12% loss on Simon's KMLM switcher. Now, you might be asking yourself, like, wow, I thought you were up like 20%. Now, I was. Here's the thing, though. If you actually look at a chart and do go basically here, this is since we were invested. This is our live portfolio, not a simulation. Just raw percentage wise, if we were basically holding this portfolio, right, we'd actually be up 29% still. The dilemma is actually how we put in our funds, right? So what ended up happening is, basically we were up at 50% at one point, and that was only on about $250. And then I put in like 500 and then 2,000 basically, and those both ended up going down. So, think about it like this. Basically, we're here, and then it took a nice, 13% loss or something like that. Or maybe even greater than that. So, essentially, that percent loss was more than what we had. So, if we come over here real quick, we can see 2,200 was invested, 2,201 or 14 minus 500 minus 250. And then we say, okay, well, what is this minus like, a negative amount of, I don't know, let's say 15%. So that'd be 85%. And then we add that back in, what is it, 250, 1919, which is not far off. So obviously we're a little bit less than 15%. So maybe even like 10%. Oop. Anyways, you get my point. What ended up happening is the amount of money that we had in when we got these first gains was actually a lot higher than what we got when we did it the other way around. Like, because we put in the funds, then all of that ended up going down. So that was just a timing thing. Obviously, if you if I had put in $2,000 initially, I'd actually still be up around, what did it say, like, it's almost 30%. So 2,000, what did I say? 2,000, I think it was like that times 1.29. I'd be up almost to $3,000 there, even after the loss. Now, at the max, obviously, still would have been up pretty damn high. So there's that, but almost over $1,000. So that's the dilemma. Anyways, I'll get in the raw numbers now. So I ended up, so overall, I'll give an overall brief overview. We have about a $663 loss for this week, which is quite a lot. You can see the market, in case S&P 500 didn't do as well. I mean, it did better than us, but you can see it's also not doing very well. And this actually outperformed our balanced portfolio, which kind of makes sense because it's a balanced portfolio, sure, but it's also a little bit more aggressive than just the S&P 500 because we're holding stuff like United Healthcare or NVIDIA, and also we have a very set amount of weight, right? I think we have like 12% for semiconductors or 20% for technology and 12% for semiconductors, for example. So there's that. And technically, S&P 500 is not equal weight, but you get my point. So there's that. And then if also, I need to do a little bit of work on this one, but because this week it's going to be fine. But you can see here that I tracked each of the different portfolios. So this is the Webull portfolio, the M1 Finance portfolio, and the Composer portfolio, and then all of their MWRRs as well as total MWRR and total gain. So, and this is day by day, so we have to basically take this total gain as a sum. So you can see $719 there. There might be some values here that are a little bit different because obviously this is showing a little bit different. Also, this is having, yeah, I'm not quite sure actually how that's, because this took Friday in account, whereas this value is basically only going up to Monday's close. So there's that. But you can see here the biggest loser Obviously, it's not Webull. That one's up 22% since Monday. Not M1 Finance. That's down 3.5% almost. It's unfortunately Composer, which is down about 10%. MWRR. So really does suck. Really does suck. You can see here that if we just plug this in here, this minus this, I know it's going to be negative. Not sure why that didn't work. Oh, wait, what? All right, let's do equals this minus that. That's about a 300. Well, I guess, yeah, we could do it the other way around. 6 and 2. So about, yeah, $317 loss. Whereas obviously if we were to do that here, it's a $400 loss. And if we were to do that here, it's a $46 gain. Now the thing is, obviously, this is significantly larger. Like we have about starting a value of 13,500, where this was about 13,150. So obviously, this is almost as much. I mean, the percentage tells this tells the story. It's about 3 times more, right? So, it really does suck. But obviously, I still have very high confidence with this. Like, this is just 1 week. I'm not gonna pull it out or anything like that. Because the thing about this is, yes, if you look over the past, little bit, like for example, this goes from 545 down to 590 or 395. So it's quite a bit. And I'll actually go this is January 24th, for example. January 24th. So what we can do to kind of get a sense of that is start it on the 20th and go to the let's see. Or let's start on the 17th and go to the 31st. Right? So January 17th and go to the 31st of January. And we can see that there. And again, this is simulated, so this isn't exactly how it's going to work. But you can see even that, like 1400% versus that. It's kind of hard to do this because it's relative growth. But my point is, you can see that there's large drops like this. But if we go back a year, it's still up, 800%. So it's still extremely amazing, right? It's extremely good. Even 3 year or 3 years back, for example, same thing. Like there's these large drops, like this one here, we had a huge drop. So yeah, and what the real good sign is this OOS start date. Basically, from there, it's gone up, 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 up. Now, obviously, it's not been that long. I think this is only about July of last year, end of July, but it's still something, right? So this does look pretty bad, but also we'll see. We'll see. I still have hopes. As for the other ones, yeah, the same thing happened. Unfortunately, we're down on pretty much all of them, but the same thing, like I said, like we had about $250 in one of these, then we added a little bit more, and then for the Four Corners one, we actually pretty much just added the amount. But same thing, I think I even, I added multiple times to this, so it's not exactly fair, a $62 introduction to that from $250, I think it was, so, or 300 something. So that's my point. It kind of sucks, but I think eventually this is going to balance out. We have SQQQ now, which, I'm not sure how well this is going to do. Obviously, if we had SQQQ for the last week, it would be pretty nice because it would be up about 3.5%. But yeah, UVXY, if it held UVXY for the rest of the week, it would have been also really nice. 10% there, whereas SVIX here is what we had. It went down quite a bit. So this is basically where we had it. It went down about 6% or something crazy like that. So anyways, guys, that is it for me. as always, just got to keep holding on in there and, you know, roll with the punches, as they say. I'm going to fix this because basically this is only taking the contributions in the account as a total, but not actually the individual things. Also probably going to add some colors to this so it's a little bit easier to determine, which one is which, rather than having to read the labels each time. But, oh, and then let me go off this thing here. So you can see here, we're still up for the month, which is good. Down for the week, but that's fine. I think this is, again, technically not correct. Yeah, this is actually just raw difference now I think about it, I think. But if we go back here, we're about 5.5% away from our original, our total contributions, and about 6.5% away from S&P 500. So slowly gaining back that stuff, even with weeks like this. We're slowly getting back that stuff. And, since it's basically the last month here, we're up $425. So there's that. But yeah, if you don't include that one, I guess, 682. It's just this one's a bad week, but anyways, guys, that is it for me. And yeah, as always, I wish you guys a wealthy future.